How are you guys? Welcome back to the Soulace Films interview series. Right now we have Miss Smith, Miss Jaida Brinkley Smith. Now, how you doing, Jada?
I'm doing good, thank you.
So we've known each other for about 4 years now. Mm-hmm. We met at UNT.
Yes.
French class. Mm-hmm. I was walking up, first disc class, walking up, and I noticed someone with a huge head. And I was like, wow, she's gonna be fun to get along with. Mm-hmm. But since then, you've grown, including your work, your creativity, your photos. Everything you're doing is amazing.
Thank you.
I wanted to bring you here to kind of get a little bit more insight on the whole process and how it all started out and how you developed it to where it is now. Mm-hmm. So yeah, what do you have to say about that, Ms. Smith?
Thank you for having me. Kind of started out as an insult, must have been an interview, but
really?
It's okay. I'm used to it when it comes to you. But our friendship is an entire insult. But yeah, I'm really excited. Thank you so much for having me, and it's an honor to be here because I think as all creatives, we're always constantly trying to grow. So whenever somebody tries to highlight you and what you're doing, it definitely brings you to a place like, wow, thank you, I appreciate that, because I don't even think I realized my growth over these 4 years.
It's amazing. Like
it's been a struggle.
If you take the first work you did and then compare it to what you're doing now, the growth is incredible. It's phenomenal, really.
Thank you.
Because it really shows how much you put into your craft itself.
Yeah.
And like, how did that process really start, really?
Honestly, what makes it like hard to really identify is that I think a lot of it just came from, as like I entered in college, I started becoming more exposed to different photographers and different creatives in general. Mm-hmm. So then it was kind of like, oh wow, I love this person's work and I love this person's work. Oh, I want to try something like that. And it was a constant like experimental process of just like, what do I like? Yeah. And even now, I don't even think I've hit that point where I'm like, this is my thing, but I'm starting to like look at my work and be proud of what I've done and be like, okay, yeah, I like this. This can be my wallpaper for a few months until I do my next shoot, like, but it kind of just like a process of constantly growing, but I think enjoying the process of learning and seeing different things and constantly being open to different sources of like inspiration.
Yeah, definitely. How do you put yourself in that mindset to want constant growth or to be able to, I guess, push yourself to the next level? Because I think that is like, some people plateau. Mm-hmm. And how do you get over that hurdle of what you think is your plateau, really, do you know?
So one of the things that I actually like went through recently with that, because it was kind of a thing where it was like, I'm not inspired. Like I had a creative block and I was just like, what's next? I don't know, like nothing is exciting to me. And I was listening to a podcast, I can't remember the name, so I'm sorry, but they were talking about, sorry, you can Google it, I don't know. But they were talking about changing the information that you're taking in. Oh, okay. So like, I sat down, I went through everybody and everything that I was following on Instagram, and I was like, okay, let me unfollow people and refollow, like, well, not even refollow, but follow new people that I've never like really followed or like paid attention to their work, because I need to refresh what I was taking in. Like, if you notice, as people, we get into habits. We do the same thing over and over again. We listen to the same music. We listen to the same podcasts. We watch the same videos. We watch the same YouTubers, whatever the case is. But you're taking in that same information over and over again. Like, I'm always on YouTube watching stuff. And so I decided to switch from YouTube to another platform that's called Nowness. Mm-hmm. And Nowness is a bunch of like short films that are created by these amazing directors, and they involve like some indie stuff, some celebrities and everything, but the way they do things are so unique and different, and it helps me to really open my horizon of like creativity. And that kind of helps getting over that plateau. So I feel like when you hit that point, it's like, it's almost kind of great, because it may be like you hit that point at your level, you're like, it's time for you to level up, but you just don't know how to. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you have to look at what you're consuming and, kind of diversify that and find some different things.
So good. That's so true. So pretty much putting yourself to new information to get, I guess, a more of a refreshing view of things, really. Yeah. Yeah, no, that really makes sense.
No, sure.
I do know, like, another reason why people plateau so easily is because the amount of stress that they go through. Yeah. Especially through the work that they're doing. You said, like, oh my gosh, I've been through that so much.
Yeah.
Are you gonna tell us about those?
No, because I mean, that's like an everyday thing. I think the stress comes from when you're like, okay, I love my creativity, now I'm gonna monetize it. Now I'm gonna make money off of it.
Yeah.
Because now you're dealing with the expectations of other people. So it goes from being about your work and more about like what you provide for that person. So one of the things that I've felt like I've constantly went through when trying to find my style, and even like a lot of photographers, I think even photographer Chloe Gonzalez tweeted about this one day. I was like, yes, girl, I resonate with that. And it's like, as photographers, we're not breathing tripods. Like you hire us for what our eye. Like we could literally take an iPhone and shoot the same thing we do on a DSLR because it's our eye, it's not the equipment. And a lot of people will hire you to create something that's not even your style. And it takes away from like the passion of it all, to the point where you're like, man, I gotta edit these photos, I gotta edit this video. And it's like, I wasn't even excited to do this, but I got bills to pay. I got all these other things to take care of. So you're doing it. And that just kind of comes from, honestly, I feel like we all have to go through that. It's kind of like paying your dues to the point where you can be like, okay, I'm going to be selective about the people I take in. But the stress is hard in that process, like building up your style, learning to say no to people, learning to balance it out between all the other aspects of life. So yeah, it's just a process. But yeah, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. No, that's really true. It is definitely a process, and that balancing between, the professionalism and also being able to selectively choose who you want to work with, because they're more inside your style. You keep things very professional. So I know a lot of starting photographers have a hard time figuring out how to make it to an actual business where they can actually profit from it legally, in a way that doesn't come back to haunt them.
Yeah.
You probably have some advice regarding that?
Oh man. No, but if anybody has some for me, no, I'm kidding. I mean, I have a little bit, but I'm still learning the like legal aspect of things. One of the things that I've learned is, as a woman, it's a lot harder than male photographers. I've gone through situations where people kind of walk over me a little bit, or like, I feel the pressure of having to be overly sweet and like, yeah, I can totally do that for you. I can make the whole world what you want it to be, because I feel like I have to overcompensate for the fact that I'm a woman, where you'll see like other male photographers who are like, no, like we shoot for 2 hours. This is what you pay for. Anything over, you owe me more money or I'm leaving. And they're so strict on it. And so learning kind of legally ways to go around that and kind of finding those areas of compensation. So I started initiating contracts for everything. When I work with people saying, hey, this is what I provide, these are the dates that I go by, this is like how much you pay. And that kind of, we have that agreement where you're aware of what you said that you would do. So when things don't work out, just kind of referring back to the agreement we put in place and saying, hey, like this is what you agreed to. And I think that's important for a lot of new creatives in general, whether you're a graphic designer, a photographer, you're in marketing, like whatever you're doing, because I think a lot of times people are so quick to say yes, and rather than sitting down and thinking things through and being like, okay, what am I doing? Is it really valuable to me? Or is it something that's going to take away from everything else that I'm doing?
I know you're also moving into like social influencing and branding. Didn't you work with Bumble? You worked with
For a
Bumble,
little
right?
bit, yeah.
How was that? How was that experience?
That was awesome. So I was a queen bee for Bumble Dallas. But it was so cool because I kind of like, I don't know if you ever go through this, but when like, I feel like a lot of times now with our generation, or even in this like age that we're in, I guess, like opportunities are like there and then they're gone the next minute. And so for me, I started with Bumble and I loved it. I mean, it's amazing to be in a position where women are making the first move. And it's so supportive of what women are doing in dating and friendships and business. They're really trying to make those connections for women. And so kind of being able to be in the back end of things and see how marketing is and how it's so important for people. Like, I think a lot of times we think about companies and marketing and we're like, oh, they only care about getting our money. But there are so many times where we were focused on genuinely building relationships amongst people. It wasn't just because like, oh, we want everybody to know about Bumble, but it was like, how can we really make it so that women feel empowered to step out and to build bonds with other women? Because as women, we grow together when we're bonded together, or even finding healthy relationships that are meant to grow, or even growing in your own business connection. But then after a while, I had to kind of like look at everything that I was doing and weigh it out and be like, okay, it unfortunately had to go because it was a lot of other things that I had on my plate. But now I'm like looking at everything they're doing. I'm just like, man, I wish I was still there because this is awesome. But it was great to even have that few moments with them and be a part of it. But yeah, it's definitely gotten me into the space of, I've been working with a lot of social media, but it also opened the door for me to realize that social media is here one day and it can be gone the next. And so it's really about the connections you make with people. So now I'm starting to kind of dip into that marketing of like building relationships and people and how can we really connect with the individual besides having a digital platform.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, really. I wanted to go ahead and ask you, because obviously having women in position of power is very important, but also building that relationship between women themselves is also important. How do you think they can balance that out in order to, I guess, bring a more refreshing feeling to creativity all in general and all platforms through media, photography, videography, films, and so forth?
Yeah, so I actually host women meetup groups every month, in Dallas.
What?
Yes. It's called Sister. It's diverse, it's for everyone. But it was started by a YouTuber in New York. Her name is Jessica Whitaker, and we have sister groups throughout the entire United States and even internationally. I think there's a few in Europe. But it was created for that same purpose of bringing girls together, because reality of the situation is that photography can be a boys' club. I mean, even in other creative circles, it can be a boys' club. And there are times where you'll go to meetups and it's kind of uncomfortable. Like, you know, you have people comparing cameras and equipment. It's just like, I'm just here to shoot, have a great time. But everybody focuses so much on like the digital aspect, like the little details of things, better said. But it was created so that we could have a comfortable space to come together and ask those real questions and grow together. And that's kind of what it is you can go in a room and be a room full of men, but you'll see like another woman, you'll be able to connect with her. Especially with where we're at, where women are kind of still fighting for that equality amongst men. It's nice when we're all together because you have that support system to really learn and grow. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
It did. Okay. It answered the question. It answered the question, yeah. I think something I personally struggle with when it comes to creativity or even coming to pushing new ideas, new refreshing ideas, is when it feels like it's too similar to what everyone else is doing. So making yourself stand out. And I know that can be really stressful, but what are probably some things that you do to kind of push something that's more original, even though I guess originality isn't original in itself. You know, it's a copy of something from somewhere. Just to make it your own, I guess. So how do you make things your own, or are you still trying to figure that out yourself?
I would say I'm still trying to figure that out myself. And I will say, this doesn't directly pertain to the question, but also I think if we focus too much on what everyone else is doing, it pushes back our personal growth. So for me, there have been times where like, I'll get on social and I'm like, man, I have this idea. And then I'll scroll a little bit and I'm like, dang, somebody already did it. But then it's like, my whole thing stops. Like, why? Okay, they did it, cool, but their audience isn't your same audience. Like, you can still create that video, create that photo, create that graphic, whatever it is, and you're gonna touch somebody that they didn't touch. And that's kind of all that really matters, is who you connect with. But if it is something, I think giving credit where credit is due, for sure. But I think as you kind of go through the process of doing things, you add your own natural twist to it, because it's always gonna be you. So there are times where like, an example would be, there was he's an artist that made like a painting that I fell in love with. And I was like, hey, do you mind if I recreate this, to, you know, be respectful to his craft and what he was doing? And he said, yeah, sure, go ahead. But when I was like editing the photo, it took on its own life. But it started out for me doing that same process of what another person was doing. But then I was like, oh, well, I could add this, I could do this, let me add that. And then it became something completely different. But it started out from where they had it. So kind of like just go through the process, because I think eventually you just start to add your own little twist to it. And that would kind of be like my best advice. And if you do make something that's identical to somebody else, giving credit, and that's what I would recommend. In terms of like standing out, stay true to yourself. I think a lot of people don't realize that there are so many different photographers and YouTubers, but even like how many beauty YouTubers there are. Everyone has a different audience. Like, somebody's gonna come to Jackie for something that they're not gonna go to Alyssa Ashley for. But they're in the same realm of doing things, but people like Jackie or people like Alyssa Ashley, and they connect with that person. So sometimes it's not as serious as like, it has to be completely different, but it's like, you know what? It's me, and what I'm adding to it is what's different. You did something, and it's that little bit towards the bigger goal, and just learn from it all, you know, even the bad situations. I try to keep a journal, as kind of like, I guess, nerdy as it is. Yeah, I journal. Really? Oh my goodness. Oh. Wow.
Wondering when I see you again.